And the saga continues. What's up, everybody? This is some truly breaking news. I literally just woke up. I had a super late start last night, so I woke up probably about 5 minutes ago. And I opened up my phone to check and see on the status of things, and I was met with some of the most ground shaking news that I have seen thus far. And I just had to stop and share this with you guys. This is so fresh to me. This is probably going to be a little bit of a lengthy one, so make sure you go grab your cup of coffee, your soda, your bottle of water, whatever it is. Let's get into this one. All right, so this is an announcement by Wizards of the Coast as of yesterday or today. Yeah, yesterday. I didn't even see this one, but I'm seeing it now. All right. And let's take a look. Let's see what's going on, because this is the future of Commander. Now, we will get into it either later on in this video or another video. I saw the post made by the RC, and I was like, what is going on? And then I saw this, and I was like, okay, we got to do this. We got to see what's going on. So for those of you that don't know, there has been major drama going on between the Commander community, Wizards of the Coast, the Rules Committee for Commander for the past week, because they banned several cards that basically in their banning cost the community way over like $100 million worth of value collectively across multiple stores, players, collectors. The bans affected the value of these cards, which made people very angry. And I'm going to say this again, because I'm not a fan of the reasoning that they've given. And I hate it for them. I hate it for everybody. I hate it for our community. I've always been against the threats of violence and the death threats that the RC was receiving over this. I think that it is two things. It is the lowest form of debate to attack the person and or say that you want to attack the other person. It is literally the lowest form of debate. I get it all the time. People calling me stupid, cursing at me, whatever for my ideas. I've had people call me a keyboard warrior, saying that if they saw me in the streets, they would try to box me up, which probably wouldn't end well for either one of us, given that I'm pretty good at that kind of thing, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that people resort to that when they have nothing else. The other thing is that the fact that people are doing this tells you that this is a widespread, very emotional, difficult thing to deal with, and you should have known that that was going to happen when you made these decisions. So on the one hand, I feel for the people who are having to deal with the consequences of their own actions, and I really hope that the community in general would be able to rise above these very low grade emotions that people should have been able to learn how to take care of these watching Daniel Tiger in kindergarten. I mean, you know what I mean? I have kids, so I've seen the whole Daniel Tiger, when you're feeling mad and you want to roar, take a deep breath and count to 4. Like, just do that, guys. If you're that upset, just relax, okay? And it's okay to have a debate, but again, I'll say this again and again and again. You should have known better. You should have known that this was going to come when you did something this gravitic. And the statement that you released saying that you wanted to send a strong message is very telling. Now, with that being said and that out of the way, that's my position on it. Be mad if you want. It is what it is. Let's talk about what Wizards of the Coast is doing. Now, apparently, Wizards of the Coast is taking over Commander from the RC. That's the big news. That's the breaking news. Wizards of the Coast is taking over Commander from the RC. And honestly, I really don't think that that is that terrible of an idea, because unifying what is already a thing should have been that way from the get-go. Why should we let them separate the thing and use the RC as a scapegoat for really bad decisions? Why not just let them have complete control of everything? They do it for modern, they do it for every other, except they do it for standard, which I know who really cares. They do it for legacy, they do it for all of this. This is a really, really great format, and honestly, I would like to think that it would be in good hands had they not already shown me over the past few years that they have basically trashed everything. So, yes, I am saying this is a good thing, but I'm also saying that this is a bad thing, because this should always have been in control of the community. Now, a unifying body for the community would have been a good thing had they not been total shills and let employees of Wizards of the Coast go in there and do and make the decisions that they had. So I'm saying that it's a good thing that the RC has passed over control, because the truth is, I think a lot of people would agree that we had no trust in the RC and the direction and the vision that they had for Commander. Okay? They had the Commander Advisory Group. They didn't tell them. Whether or not they colluded with Wizards to hide this from the Commander Advisory Group is an entirely different conversation. But they didn't use the tools that were available to them to let them know whether or not this was a good thing. They wanted to send a very tyrannic, strong message to a community about a game format that was made by the community. And they lost their guiding light in Shenry. I just said Sheldon Menery in one word. My brain is weird like that sometimes. But that's really good. In Shenry, right? In Sheldon Menery, they lost their guiding light last year, unfortunately. Rest in peace, Sheldon. And it shows, because a year to the date after not a year to the date, but the next year after he's gone, this ridiculousness happens. And that just shows you and honestly, if you look at things on a broader perspective, like other organizations, other companies, this is very common. Okay. This is very common for when somebody, a foundational member, somebody that pioneered this idea, it's very common for things to collapse and be absorbed when someone like that takes the long nap. All right. It's very common. So I'm not even at all surprised. So if you're sitting here and you're like, oh, no, I'm not even at all surprised. I'm actually less surprised about that than I am about the bannings, which is weird. And I know a lot of people are going to say that. And some of you probably already thought that the moment I said I'm not at all surprised, you were probably like, well, you shouldn't have been surprised about those bannings. But I am less surprised that Wizards has taken over the Commander format because of the loss of Sheldon Menery. Why am I having such a hard time saying this? Anyway, you guys get the point. But let's get to the meat and potatoes here. Let's talk about the future of Commander. Let's go ahead and give this a read. The past week has been tumultuous for Commander fans, members of the Commander Rules Committee, and the Magic community as a whole. Along the way, we've seen players and fans share a diverse range of passionate opinions, far too many of which were harmful or malicious. Below and over the next few days and weeks, we will be discussing quite a bit about Commander, starting with the most pressing. Over the past week, the conversation has escalated, culminating with unacceptable personal threats to the safety of members of the Commander Rules Committee. This is something we will not tolerate. No matter how you feel about something in Magic, it is never appropriate to threaten somebody. Everyone at Wizards of the Coast is united on this front. We will not hesitate to take action against individuals who threaten to harm community members or employees. I agree with that. I think that is good. I mean, if people want to go and threaten, they should call the authorities, press charges. They should. I mean, this is something that should have been being done the entire time. I agree with that, and people just in general should take a strong stance against it. For sure, for 100% sure. So, hey, first thing in the article we can agree with. Now, I will say this: like, if you do that, if you decide that you're going to take that strong of a stance, and maybe you decide that you take these people's emails, you put them up against your list and you ban them, you know, um, then sure. But here's the thing, and you start pressing charges and start taking a real strong hand against this, then you better start listening to your community and you better start having a better pulse on the things that you do, so you don't ban cards that take this much value out, and you take a more measured and slow approach, the way that Olivia had said that she wanted to do, the way that a lot of people in the CAG had come and said, hey, we should have done this, the way a lot of people agreed that it could have been done. It should have been a smaller approach. It should not have been the strong message. So, I agree with your post, but at the same time, this position, this stance that you're taking is not an excuse to just go, all right, we're going to take the whole Commander format and we're going to flip it upside down and we're just going to make this strong response and we're going to do what we want to do because this is our game now. And, like, all right, guys, make sure you pump the brakes, because if you start doing this and you start, doing what I'm assuming that you're talking about, then be prepared for a blowback, a worse one than this time around, where people will go, I don't care, and they'll start leaving the games in droves because they're like, okay, well, I'm an angry person and you guys are not listening, and fine, then I just won't play this game. I'll go play Yu-Gi-Oh or Weiss Schwartz or Lorcana or something else. Just be careful is all I'm saying. Next thing. The week has also demonstrated the truly monumental tasks that face the Commander Rules committee. The Commander RC is made up of 5 talented, caring individuals, all with other jobs and lives, which they must balance with managing the most popular format in Magic. It results in incredible amounts of work, time spent deliberating, and exposure to the public. Nobody deserves to feel unsafe for supporting the game they love. Unfortunately, the task of managing Commander has far outgrown the scope and safety of being attached to any 5 people. I agree. I think that is a sentiment that a lot of people have made, that the rules committee is far too small, that they don't represent the entire community, and we wanted, and when I say we, I'm saying the community, a lot of members of the community wanted this to happen. Okay, I think the thing is, though, some of you might agree that what we wanted is somebody else to take over, a different community, and that still could be a thing, guys. Head over to unboundcommander.com, where I am trying to build a community. I've gotten a bunch of views on the foundational document. I've gotten a bunch of people talking about it. I've gotten a bunch of people liking my posts on it, but so far nobody has stepped up and sent me a message or made a post or anything saying, hey, yeah, I want to get this started. Hey, can we try this in my store? Guys, just because Wizards of the Coast is taking over this thing, and I don't even care if you use mine, if you use Unbound Commander or not, or you use some other organization. Let's take this back for ourselves. It is a community format first, specifically competitive, right? It's I don't care what Wizards does, but who knows? Maybe the future will tell us more. All right, let's continue on. So today, in partnership with members of the existing Rules Committee, we are announcing that the Rules Committee is giving management of the Commander format to the game design team of Wizards of the Coast. Part of me reads this and goes, well, you guys are the ones that screwed this up in the first place. But then the other part of me reads this and goes, maybe you guys won't screw this up. And I know some of you will be like, what? You're an idiot. Delete my subscription. Stop following this guy. Whatever, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, hey, I've played Modern before. Modern has really good bans. I think that they're a little bit slow. But whenever something has been banned in Modern, all right, let's talk about Modern for a second. Some of you may or may not have ever played Modern. But let's talk about Modern. The bans on Modern are usually slow, unless it's an emergency ban, unless it becomes a real big problem, like Hogak. Hogak got banned, I think, like a month. And here's the thing, like, the bans are really slow. The bans are appropriate most of the time. Yes, some of them can cause a lot of money to be lost, but it usually isn't that crazy. It usually isn't multiple expensive pieces all at once. Sometimes they ban things and we're just like, oh, that sucks. That hit my pet deck. But it's usually just because it's like some random deck that wasn't really the boogeyman of the format. They actually like do their bans based on data and things like that. So maybe this is a good thing. Maybe this forces Wizards of the Coast to start acknowledging Commander as the format that it is. Maybe it starts making Wizards collect data and start putting money into collecting data so they understand what they're doing. Maybe this is a real positive thing, guys. All right. Maybe this is the impetus. This is the push that gets Commander started in the right direction. Maybe this is the push that gets the tournament organization software to be able to track individualized performance within a pod, because I think that's the hardest thing that that we haven't been able to accomplish as a community, because we are so split on whether or not Commander is a casual format or a competitive format. We want to play the game competitively, but at the same time, we don't have any good way to track the stats, to track individualized performance. We don't have any good ways to do what we really want to do, which is play this game, be able to feel like we did a good job, and get rewarded appropriately for it without feeling bad for having done so. So maybe this means that there are far more bans coming in the future that are going to be, really bad for people's wallets, or maybe this means just the opposite. Maybe Wizards takes a look at the format and goes, you know what? There are a couple things that should be unbanned. There's a couple things that should be banned. Let's really work hard and let's put some paid professional people. And this is nothing against the RC, but like they just said, the RC wasn't paid. They had their own jobs. They, their focus was split. I'm reminded of the quote, and it's actually from the Bible of all things, which doesn't seem appropriate to insert into Magic, but it says you can't serve two masters. Or maybe that's found in other literature, but I remember you can't serve two masters. So, maybe that's the crux of the issue, is that, the RC has their own jobs, their own things that they're doing, and they are not able to put the full-time attention. And maybe that's the source of this really bad decision, is that they didn't put their full-time attention. They didn't think of all these things because they just weren't actually capable of doing it. But on the other hand, there were people that worked for Wizards of the Coast on the Commander Rules Committee. So maybe there's this whole thing where this has been planned all along. Who knows? Like how far down does the rabbit hole go? Was this a planned thing? They infiltrated it. They're like, let's make them make the worst decision possible. I don't know if I believe that one yet. I need a little bit more evidence. I need a little bit more documentation to come out to see if that's what's true. But I do know that they were most likely, I do feel like they were most likely in collusion with each other for things like the tomfoolery of selling sets using Mana Crypt as the advertised staple of Commander that you could get if you buy these boxes and do all this stuff, all the while knowing full well that it was going to be banned. All right, I do believe that happened. And it happened in conjunction with Wizards of the Coast. They all knew about it. It was a circle jerk, if you will, of like, hey, let's do this. Forget the players. They're going to spend a lot of money, and a year is long enough. Like, no, guys, it wasn't. A lot of people are angry. But getting back to this article, maybe this turns out to be a really good thing. I am hopeful. That they take that they take Marrow's own words and they do better. That's the thing. They need to do better. If they're going to do this, then do better. Don't look at us to do better. You do better, and we will respond in kind. All right? I will never forget that. You do better, and we will respond in kind. That's such a powerful statement. I'm going to put that into my own modus operandi of how I view things. Is that if I want better results, then I need to do better. All right, so let's go forward. Working with the community. Wait, did we pass it? All right. Commander has always been a community-focused format, and this move in management does not change that. While ownership of the format may be changing, members of the Rules Committee and others in the community will continue to be involved, and the vision for our social format will not change. We've had some preliminary conversations about what we would like to accomplish and have some ideas we will be rolling out together in the months to come. This is a little bit scary. Working with the community to craft this format is critical to all of us. Yeah, it is. I'm glad somebody recognizes this. I'm glad somebody at let's quick pause. Sorry, guys. I know you might hate when I do this, but finally, somebody recognizes over at the mothership that Commander and doing the right things for Commander is of critical importance. This is the format for the game. I'm so sick and tired of people pretending like Commander isn't the biggest. I have been saying this since 2017. Okay? As a matter of fact, if you go read the article that I wrote, I pretty much said that. I'm like, hey, it crested past the popularity. Like, everybody has been playing Commander. Whether you liked it or not, you have to acknowledge that Commander is the way that people play this game. It's been that way for years. So it needs the respect that it deserves as a format. Okay? This is the most popular way to play this game. Nobody's playing Standard. No, and if they do, they're probably playing it on Arena. But the way that people do the gathering part of Magic the Gathering is most likely Commander. I'm just saying. I don't know how you can argue with that. It's like on the broader perspective of things. It is the way, if you will. This is the way. All right. So finally, we have opened a new Discord channel on the official Magic Discord. Whoa, I got to go join that. In the Commander News channel. And we will also have a weekly MTG stream talking about this tomorrow, October 1st at 10 a.m. Well, that sucks. I already missed it. Well, this is still very early. While this is still very early, we do not want to share one of the things we've just started working on with the Rules Committee, a more objective approach to deck power level and additional guidance and shared language for players to find games that match the type of game they're trying to play. It isn't anywhere near finished yet, but as part of building this with the community, we're opening it up for feedback, thoughts, and your version of how this will look. Think of this like an open beta. This is very interesting. Let's slow this down a little bit. Here's the idea. There are 4 power brackets, and every Commander deck can be placed in one of those brackets by examining the cards and combinations in your deck and comparing them to lists we'll need community help to create. You can imagine bracket 1 is the baseline of an average pre-constructed deck, or below, and bracket 4 is high power. For the lower tiers, we may lean on a mixture of cards and a description of how the deck functions, and the higher tiers are likely defined by more explicit lists of cards. For example, you can imagine bracket 1 has cards that easily go into any deck, like Swords to Plowshares, Grave Titan, and Cultivate, whereas bracket 4 would have cards like Vampiric Tutor, Armageddon, and Grim Monolith. Cards that make games too much more consistent, lopsided, or fast than the average deck can engage with. In this system, your deck would be defined by its highest bracket card or cards. This makes it clear what cards go where and what kinds of cards you can expect people to be playing. For example, if Ancient Tomb is a bracket 4 card, your deck would generally be considered a 4. But if it's part of a Tomb-themed deck, the conversation may be, my deck is a 4 with Ancient Tomb, but a 2 without it. Is that okay with everyone? Will this system guarantee perfectly matched games? No, and that might be fine at your table, but if it gets the conversation started from a shared understanding, that's already great for the table. We would love to hear what you think about this and which power brackets you would play certain cards in. All right, I want to be the first one to make a video about this. I don't know if it'll actually be the first one, but let me just say this right here. I think that this is a great idea on multiple levels if implemented correctly. Okay? This is already reminiscent of the Rule Zero type of conversation that I tend to have at my local LGS. We don't objectively look at cards and say, "Oh, that automatically goes in a tier 1 deck." You know, that or they say bracket 4. So that automatically goes in a bracket 4 deck. We don't look at it like that. We look at the overall theme of the deck. We look at the commander itself. Is this a commander that is really powerful, can go infinite? We look at how many infinites are in your deck. We look at the combinations of the cards in your deck. We look at, and one of the things that I've said for a very long time, if uninteracted with, on average, what turn does your deck win on? If uninteracted with. And not just on average, not just like every once in a while it can pull off like a turn 5 win. You know, what is the average over 10 games, for example? And you'll see that certain decks are highly tuned to win consistently on turn 3 and 4. To me, decks that, if uninteracted with, can win consistently on turn 3 or 4, maybe sometimes even win on turn 1 or 2, and then maybe and then very rarely do they get unless they're interacted with, do they get past turn 5 or 6. That to me would be like a bracket 4 deck. Okay? And it's the combination of the cards that make it happen. You know, for example, like I have a mono blue Teferi deck, and that deck can pretty often win sub turn 2. It averages around 3 or 4 with interaction, and sometimes, depending on the interaction, my ability to not be able to draw the cards that I need in a specific scenario, maybe using up all my resources to stop other players from winning, it'll win past turn 4, turn 5. That deck never gets to like turn 7 or 8. That to me would be a bracket 4 deck, 100%. Upper tier of bracket 4 deck. I've won CDH tournaments hands down, like very handily with that deck. It is a very, very, very strong deck. Okay. Now, at the same time, I have another deck. It's Jin Gitaxias, another mono blue deck. Now, Jin Gitaxias, while it shares a lot of the same cards, it's got a lot of counter spells, it's got a lot of mana rocks and stuff like that. The commander itself is like a mid-game strategy deck. It doesn't really win on average until like turn 5, turn 6, right? That would be like a bracket 3 deck. Because, yeah, it has some really explosive games sometimes. And sometimes I can get my commander out on turn 2, and then turn 3, I can start looping infinite turns. But that very rarely ever happens. I have to have the perfectly sculpted hands and draws together, right? That would be like maybe a bracket 2 or bracket 3, maybe 2.5. It's not nearly as good of a deck, and part of the reason why is because it lacks the mana acceleration that like Teferi does. And then there are multiple examples of like, you know, precons. Precon being a bracket 1 deck makes perfect sense to me. Most precons would be bracket 1. Now there's obvious disparity between individualized precons. Like I think the Faldorn deck that came out is one of the strongest precons of all time, you know, when compared to like just any old random precon deck out there. But then again, like you put Faldorn up against something like Planar Chaos. I forget the name of that commander, the one that makes treasures and you play things from exile or whatever. What's the name of that? What's the name of that guy? You guys know. You put it in the comments section. Let me know. Anyway, those are on pretty equal footing, but those would be definitely still bracket 1. So to me, this makes sense. This makes sense. And what I love about this is that we are going to see more data come out of this, and we have needed a unified stance on this. Now, I personally hope that the data starts to show what I think makes something competitive or not is what I call the average turn win. Okay, what is your average turn win for this deck? Like, that should be where the discussion of power level is. On average, what turn does your deck win on? Because that tells you the speed, that tells you how well the deck is tuned, that tells you everything you need to know, and the combinations of the card therein. We shouldn't be looking like you can take a precon and you can put Ancient Tomb in it, and it's still going to be a precon. You can take a precon and put Mana Crypt in it, and you know it's still going to be It's still going to be a precon with Mana Crypt in it. It's still going to be a 1. We should, in Commander, with as complex as the format is, and the fact that it's a 100-card singleton and every game is not the same, we should be actually looking more at tutors. Tutors are more of an indicator on how consistent a deck is. Like, I'm more concerned that a deck has demonic tutor in it and other types of tutors, and that tells me more about the power level of the deck than a bunch of mana rocks. Because if you don't draw the mana rocks, then who cares? But tutors actually bring up the consistency of the deck. It takes away some of the variance, making the deck more consistent and by nature more powerful, because you're able to get out what you want. But then there's this other argument that says you can put tutors in a precon, and guess what? It's still a precon with a tutor. So the thing is very complex, and I'm very, very glad that we are considering starting to take more data in and understanding the power levels of different decks, and whatever tools that they're working on to make this happen, I think is a step in the right direction. I hope the tool includes putting your deck list on there, so that way there is some way, and then maybe like a report system where not that you're reporting somebody did something bad, but you get to report which deck won out of the different decks, and that even just that low level amount of tracking will give Wizards the data, and they can put that data into a machine learning algorithm to learn, like, hey, which combinations of cards are in decks that win very, very often. And if you do that aggregate over a large enough sample size, you will start to see some outliers. So if this is what Wizards is planning, thumbs up. If this is not what Wizards is planning, thumbs in the middle somewhere. We'll have to see what solutions they come up with. But let's keep going. Now, we will also be evaluating the current banned card list alongside both the Commander Rules Committee and the community. We will not ban additional cards as part of this evaluation. While discussion of the ban list started this, immediate changes to the list are not our priority. For now, the safety and well-being of the Rules Committee is the priority. What has happened this past week is entirely unacceptable. By working together as a team, we can shoulder the responsibility of this format and everything that comes along with it. All right, cool. So, there's a chance. There's a chance that things might get unbanned. They're not looking to add things to the ban. They're looking to unban things. They're not going to do it right away, which I think is the best approach. It is the approach that they should have done from the get-go. But just this statement alone, guys, tells you that there's a chance, which means stop ripping up your fake mana crypts. Stop tearing up your fake jeweled lotuses and cutting them on camera to gain clout. They have still maintained some amount of value, and they may maintain it in the future, okay, as they get unbanned. I am hopeful, all right? I want them to do better. We should all collectively be wanting Wizards of the Coast to do better and to do the right thing, okay? For the time being, let's rule zero these things back in. Let's show Wizards of the Coast that we do not care about whether or not these cards are banned, that they are fun, and we want them. Let's continue to work together and create a format that is our own, and using Wizards of the Coast and their and what they do and the decisions they make only as a guide, as it was always intended to be. Okay? Because at the end of the day, this is our format. Now, the fact that Wizards of the Coast is doing this is great. I think that this is an overall net positive. I do think that they are harping a little bit too much on this whole, death threats thing. I think that it makes sense that they are, because it is the easiest thing for them to do to gain sympathy within the community, and for everybody to latch onto this and say, wow, this is great. You're doing this for such an honorable reason. I'm going to say this right now. Don't be so quick to trust Wizards. Don't be so quick to think that they weren't complicit in this whole thing all along. We need more time. We need more vision. As of right now, I think this is a positive thing for everybody involved, but don't be so quick to just buy Wizards at their nonsense. This is still the same Wizards of the Coast that fed you cards that they knew were going to be banned. To me, I think that's indisputable at this point. I don't think there's any way you can look at this situation without talking about that. I don't think that there's any way that Wizards can walk away from that. And they're handling this in a way that is very reminiscent of some type of political government entity. They are saying, we're going to take over this from the community. We're going to own it. Look at the keywords that they're using. We are going to own this now. It is ours now. We're going to do all these great things. And the reason why we're doing this is because we want to make sure that the rules committee is protected. Okay? Now, while surely these are some honorable takes from all of this, while surely these are some good things that will come from this, is that the rules committee can kind of let go of the whole of the responsibility of everything. It can now go from being people who are personally involved with this in their lives and become shifted into this faceless corporation. And you know what? Faceless corporations can take all the blame they want because they're not real. They're just a made-up entity. So if you want to send threats over to WOTC, it's not that big of a deal, and they can just sue the crap out of you, or they can just send the Pinkertons after you, or call the police, or whatever they want to do, right? Because it's a faceless corporation, so you are less likely as an individual to start throwing crap at them, right? Because they're scarier. They're a big faceless corporation. They're not just some person that you see on TV all the time, or that you see on your screens all the time. They're not the rules committee. And I think that is a very real consequence of this, and it is probably the easiest move, and it makes sense. But at the same time, don't be so fooled, all right? Wizards of the Coast is still complicit in all of this. Don't be so fooled into thinking that they wouldn't have engineered this, all right? And I'm trying not to sound, and I'm really trying not to sound like a person that just has a tinfoil hat on all the time. But guys, think about this critically. Why would they want to do this in the first place? Do you think that Wizards of the Coast is just a bunch of normal people over there? Do you think that people get to work at Wizards of the Coast because they are just your average level of intelligence, your average run-of-the-mill people that, have no idea what they're doing, that they're just kind of following their day-to-day processes? No, man. They think and they plan these things out for a long time coming. They have meetings about this. Their entire structure is set up to be a money-making machine that takes advantage of the player base. And that's why it's important, despite this announcement, despite everything that I've said, remember who they are first and understand that this is what we're seeing here is the silver lining of something that is likely more nefarious to come. And maybe it's not. Maybe they looked at themselves introspectively as a company, because I've been hearing some other things going on. Like apparently they're getting a new president, which I wasn't even aware of that. Apparently there's a lot of things going on in the back that may allude to them having a bit of a change of heart and wanting to do better. And I'm hoping that they listen to their own head designer and they do better themselves. Because at the end of the day, if you want us to be better and to do better, then you need to do it too. And honestly, because you're the progenitor of these things that happen to us, you need to do better first. And then you'll see great things come from us as a community. You might even see yourselves make more money. You might see us go, we don't really need to proxy anymore. The cards are reasonable, they're easy to get, they're worth something, they're valuable. They're valuable again. We can trust that you guys are making the right decisions. Hey, who knows, right? Anyway, I don't think that there's any more of this article. I've got so much more to cover with you guys, but this is breaking news. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed this video, leave me an algorithmic comment in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about all of this. Maybe you disagree with me. Maybe you've been following me this entire time and you're like, oh no, Marco's becoming a shill for the corporation. Put that in the comment section. If you disagree with me and you think that this is all bad and you think that, the RC giving up control is the worst thing to ever happen to Commander, then put that in the comment section. Let the people know. Let your voice be heard. That's the whole purpose of why I even started doing these videos. Anyway, I'm ready to do the next video. Hopefully you guys are too. Peace, love, and chicken grease. See you later.